Well, I'm just going to give you high level details. I did go to school to do this. I have a degree in broadcast journalism. I also have degrees in public policy, political science, and international studies. That was in case sports didn't actually work out. And every internship I had was sports related. And just about every job I have ever had has been sports related. Once you get in at an entry level position, you can see the path forward and figure out how to like move up and the skills that you need to acquire. So once you get into the industry, it's just like anything else. It's just that first step.
Okay. So what is the most important kind of thing that you've learned on your journey?
The importance of warming up a space and being seen to the point that people don't remember it without you.
Okay.
So here's what I mean. Everybody wants to get a foot in the door. And I will tell you that that's awesome. And everybody needs a foot in the door, but that actually doesn't get you anywhere. That gets you like one step inside the door. What you need to do is figure out the space that you want to show up consistently. This is not about how many people you know in the industry, how many emails you have, how many connections on LinkedIn, because I can't possibly dedicate the amount of time I need to build a relationship with hundreds of people who don't know who I am or don't know how I work. So the most important thing is to pick the space that you want to be in. And I don't care if that is a physical space like a Starbucks every Monday, because you know that that's where everybody is talking about the game, or whether it's in somebody's email inbox every month or so to check in on a contact that you've made, or if it's the actual job that you were hired to do. But pick a space and be seen in that space to the point that people do not remember it without you. And here's how you know if you are spending the amount of time in that space to do that. If when you are not there one day, the next time you show up, they say, hey, where were you? I missed you. I usually get an email from you on Monday mornings. What happened this week? Now, it's okay if you don't always send that email, but that's how you know that people are noticing you and that you're warming up a space.
Okay, I like that. I like that. What are some trends that you are seeing kind of just maybe over time? Like what have you seen that has kind of changed in the industry?
Everything. Nothing is the same as it was even 5 years ago. And there's so many different ways to go. But what I would say is, as it relates to people who are looking for a job, looking to get into the industry, or just want to know more about sports, it is a diversity in skill set that's going to help you. You've got to be able to do a number of different things. You've got to understand social media, but maybe editing, but also it's interviewing, and then it's hosting, and then it's doing a number of different things, and it's always going to be changing. So we are still waiting to see what happens in the the near future when it comes to how regional sports networks are going to operate.
Hmm.
But yeah, everything is changing, and it creates some opportunities, and it also creates opportunities to deal with change.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so before we get too far into it, I seen you post today that there is flag football and there's going to be, what was the other sport that's going to be added to the Olympics?
There's going to be squash. There's actually
Oh,
five
five.
sports that are going to be added to the Olympics in 2028. But yeah, flag football is a big one. Squash is one. They've got baseball, softball, cricket, and I might be missing one. But yes,
What, and I seen you had an open-ended question too. What do you think, or what sport should be played in the Olympics? Do you have one that should be played in the Olympics that you think that should be played in the Olympics?
well, I really was just trying to think outside the box. I had somebody say that ballroom dancing was on
Hmm.
their list, and I think that would be pretty awesome. Also, I'm just overly competitive in everything I do, so I can make just about anything a sport that could be rated and graded.
Okay. So, I kind of want to get back before we get too far. Did you ever like who was your favorite team when you were growing up? Did you have a favorite team?
Yeah, yeah, the Houston Astros are my favorite team.
Okay.
I grew up watching baseball in Houston, and that's the team. I checked the box scores every morning when I was a kid. The games were not on TV very often. It was a big treat if mom and dad took you to a game. Yep, that is the team of my childhood.
Okay. How When you are coming into like being a like working with the Mariners and everything, have you when did you become a like a did you just become a Seattle Mariners and like Seahawks fan because you worked in the industry with them and then you grew
Yeah.
in like a
Yeah, I mean, your entire week or your entire day or your entire month revolves around how your teams are doing, right? When the Seahawks lose, like they did in Cincinnati, the entire week feels like a loss until you get back to next
mhm.
Sunday. So of course you're cheering for the team. Also, you develop relationships with people in the organization, in the locker room and clubhouse, and absolutely you want to see them do well. So I know that there's a few folks I've talked to, they get concerned that they did not grow up a fan of a certain sport or a certain team. And I tell them, do not worry about it. You will learn to love that sport and the team when you spend enough time around them.
Okay, I agree. I agree. How do you, okay, so when you're doing like post game interviews, how do you come up with questions so quickly? How, like, if like something happens in the ninth inning, how do you change your thought process from one way to going to another? Like, how does that work?
Well, a ninth inning or a fourth quarter, final touchdown, in some ways that's easier. And I'm very rarely coming up with questions on the fly. I write questions down during the entire game. I write questions down starting in the first and second inning because you don't know when you get to the ninth inning. Maybe it was that at bat in the first inning that tired a pitcher out because it was 12 pitches and it shortened their outing, right? You don't know. So I'm always tracking things like that. Same thing during a football game. But if something happens at the very last minute, first of all, I've already written about 15 questions. So one of those or two of those is still going to apply. Second, my post game interviews are generally no more than four questions. So I've got to make sure I get to the heart of whatever this is very, very quickly because I probably have 2 minutes, right, total to do this interview. So if it comes down to the ninth inning, you attack what happened in that ninth inning right off the bat, right? There's one or two questions. They're pretty obvious based on whatever it is that's happened. And then I might take a little bit bigger picture view and go to one of the questions that I had written down from earlier in the game.
Okay. I always wonder because like sometimes I'm like, dang, like that like that's such a good question, but like it's like so quick in the moment that I'm like, I wonder how you come up with those. Can you give us a
I write them down and I rehearse actually. They're in front of me. I write them down and I rehearse.
okay.
Yes.
How does someone build an audience without seeing them? How do you warm people up?
You mean like if I'm on
Yes,
TV?
ma'am.
Well, I'm a fan first. I was a fan long before I was a sports broadcaster. So to me, I'm still watching the game and I am still a fan. And I think some of that comes through in the way that you ask questions or the way that you talk to somebody, right? I talk to you like I'm sitting next to you at a sports bar and I'm just trying to give you like the little nugget that maybe you didn't hear today, but I did because it was my job to be in that clubhouse. I think that's part of it. Um, I don't know that I have a great answer outside of you just keep putting yourself in the position of being a fan. And my friends are fans, and the people that I work with are fans. So I'm not trying to talk to everybody all at once. I'm actually just trying to talk to one person at a time. And so to me, it's like a three-way conversation. It's me, it's the player, and it's you. That's it. Those are the only people that I'm talking to. Now, granted, there's hundreds of people, thousands of people listening inside T-Mobile Park too, but that's not, I'm not thinking about all the people. I'm just thinking about like a person.
Okay. Okay. What are your thoughts on like the Stephen A. Smiths of the world or like the Skip Baylesses?
I think that they've changed the industry. They've changed what we expect from sports talk, what we expect when we tune into morning sports programming. It is not my style. It will never be my style. It is not my style to listen to or to try to emulate. But viewership has shown that there is a place for that, and it has absolutely changed not just sports, but also what we expect to see on TV and talking about other subjects as well.
Okay. How does someone improve their communication skills?
Practice. And you practice before you need them. right? And I know I say that and it sounds flip, but here's the thing. And I posted about this a couple of days ago and then today. So if you think about all of the skills that you need to have in business, tough conversations are one of the biggest ones that always cause people trouble, right? Like you avoid having the conversation that starts to get a little bit sticky because, somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do, right?
Hmm.
Or because you have to give them news that isn't pleasant. Well, as a sports fan and as a sports broadcaster, I deal with that after every loss. I get really good at talking to people when there's been missed opportunities and when there's been mistakes. Sports fans can do that too. Sports fans can also practice how to be positive in a tough situation. Sports fans can practice how to deliver their message in a way that somebody else hears it. But every time you hear me talk on TV or radio, I have probably practiced what I was going to say. I am super intentional and strategic about small talk, about the way that I approach networking conversations, about how I talk to athletes, because there's always something little that I'm trying to practice. And maybe it's just being uncomfortable. Maybe it's walking up to one of the guys that I have not met yet or don't have a great relationship with, and I am super uncomfortable and would much rather just stand over in the corner and not say
Yes,
anything.
ma'am.
But when you practice feeling that way, now I can actually do it in real life and in bigger situations. So find all the little ways to practice, and sports gives you a ton of ways to practice. Sports conversations, like just being a sports fan. So be strategic and intentional about those because they do actually come up in bigger conversations.
How do you stay unbiased when you are reporting?
Well, lucky for me, I actually don't have to. That is the benefit of
Okay.
working for a team and being a team partner. So it's not about being unbiased. Here's what I would say. I think sometimes the challenge is how you present things fairly. And I practice this as well. There are words that you can choose all the time. We tend to default to the same words over and over again when there's a lot of different words that you can use to describe the situation. When the Mariners are losing and they've lost 7 straight games, I'm going to characterize that differently than somebody else. Now, I want to be fair, but I have to be honest because if they're losing, they're losing. The Seahawks, they lose in Cincinnati. Look, I wish that we would have won, but the truth of the matter is when you look at the numbers, the red zone was terrible. The number of sacks were awful. Now, I'm not going to say that in a broadcast. What I would say is they came up significantly short in the red zone. There were missed opportunities. For me, it's not about being unbiased. It's how do I characterize that? Because my audience, going back to your question about audience, my audience is not just fans at home. My audience is every player in that locker room because guess what? They're all sitting next to each other. So if I'm not careful, it's going to sound like I'm asking a teammate to throw another teammate under the bus,
Hmm.
right? My audience is also an entire coaching staff, a front office, all of the sponsors, and everybody that I work with. So I'm talking to a lot of folks, and I just need to choose my words very carefully.
Okay. What is okay, so when people see you out, what is the most common question that you get?
um, it's changed. During baseball season, it's usually how do you get out of the way of the Gatorade? A question I get asked frequently is what's it like in a locker room? Um, yeah, it's changed over the years, and I will get who's your favorite player or who's your favorite interview.
How do you get out of the way of the Gatorade? Is there like, can you see it coming? Do you see it on the camera? Do you see it?
Most of the time. Most of the time, I know who I'm looking for, and I got it out of the corner of my eye. And there's a little bit of an agreement in place that I will stay in there until the very last possible second and then jump out of the way. So that's usually how that one happens.
Okay.
There are a couple of times where I think they conspired against me, but that's okay.
Okay. What is your favorite part of coming to work every day?
That it's always different and that I get to work with people. And I know that sounds silly, but it really is the connection that you have. And I think it's the connection you have in sports. It's just really different from anything else. Now, there are parts of my job that are just like every other job. There's emails, there's scheduling, there's writing, there's meetings, there's stuff where you're like, man, this is not the most fun part of my job. But I genuinely enjoy the people that I work with. And there is a different level of camaraderie in sports than in any other environment. And so it's always about the people that I get the chance to work with.
Okay. I got a couple more for you real quick. How does someone identify their strengths and then leverage them?
I think sometimes it takes other people to see what you can't. I assure you, I would have never attempted broadcasting had it not been for my high school guidance counselor. I was going to be a third grade Lutheran school teacher. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Steele, suggested that broadcasting might be something that I wanted to look at. Up until that point, I'd not only not considered it, but I didn't see that I had the skill set to even succeed in it. So I would say this: let other people tell you what they see in you. That does not mean that you relinquish all of your dreams and your goals, but I am willing to bet that the closest people to you, the people who see you every day, also see skills that you don't recognize in yourself. Because to you, it's not a superpower. To you, it's just how you move through the
Hmm.
day. But to them, they see it as a superpower to be leveraged.
Okay, I like that. I like that. What is your why?
That's a pretty big question. What's my
Yeah,
why? Where do you want my why to go?
kind of sort like why do you get up every day? What makes it so you want to continue to progress and to succeed?
Well, I do love what I do. I am an ultra competitive person. I do think the biggest why is giving people a platform to tell their stories. I do that in post game interviews. I do that in Mariners All Access features that allow people to see a personality they don't see when guys are on the field. I do that in public speaking and in giving folks communication strategies that help them to be more confident. But if I can help somebody else have a voice, that's what I am here to do.
Most definitely. I think that's what it's all about. Okay, last thing real quick. This is my last question. What is your definition of success?
I think you probably want me to go big picture, but I'm going to go the opposite direction with this. And I would say there's all different levels of success, right? And one day I will look back at my career and I will figure out where I have been most successful. But none of that makes me feel good as success that I can find every day. And I talk about this when I give presentations, but I will tell people that I measure success one word at a time: hello. And I have a goal to get people to say hello or hello, Jen, every time I go to work and every time I walk into a locker room and clubhouse. And it doesn't seem like much, but in terms of relationship building, every single relationship, every single friend I have ever made, every business colleague, every conversation has always started with hello. Sometimes we make success so big, we forget to count the small moments. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of stacking wins during the course of my day. So I look for that success and I measure that differently. And it's one of those little building blocks that I know will ultimately lead to a good relationship with whoever it is that I need to talk to. I mean, it's how I build relationships with all of my athletes, right? I think part of that is you have to show up consistently. And it's not just being in the space, it's showing up with a smile on your face. It's showing up, being willing to engage with people. And it's being willing to say hello. And I think I would sum up success in one word: hello. Not just when I say it, but when I hear that back from any of my folks.
We have Jen Mueller here on the pod with us. I love that answer. I always love that's the last answer, or that's the last question I usually ask in the podcast. I think that's the most important because everybody has a different definition of success. And I always love to hear because, it always makes me think and it makes other people think about how they view success and what is success. And yeah, I really appreciate you for coming on. This has been super amazing. I know you are super busy, and so I just really appreciate you for taking time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me join you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.